It's over. What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about how weekends are absolutely brutal. And basically, the reason for that is because the social net is completely done for and deteriorated and dead. If you're not in a very tight knit community like a religious organization or a sport or in school, then it's gone. It's non existent. And you have literally no one to hang out with on a consistent basis. And that's truly why it's absolutely over. And you can try, you can make attempts, you can potentially reach out to people at certain events. You could potentially say hello to strangers at the local grocery store or even at the gym. What's up, bro? Let me spot you, bro. Yeah. Oh, wow. You're putting up a pretty big bench there, bro. And then never see them again, right? And that's really what it comes down to. You're never going to see them again. They don't care about you. And it's truly utilitarian and transactional, the relationship that you have with them anyway. And with that being said, there really are no friends to hang out with on the weekend. There is no community that you go to. Maybe you go to a restaurant that you like and you sit down and the waiter comes up and asks you, what you want to order. Just you sitting there alone. Maybe you go to the farmer's market. You pick up some half-rotting tomatoes and some meat, something like that. Look at some cute girls. Maybe you even say hello to one of them if you're feeling ballsy enough. Huh. Yeah, right. But you're never going to see them again. Maybe you'll see the farm owners next week or something like that, but if you're not buying their cauliflower, I don't think they're going to want to talk to you. And it's definitely not hanging out with friends. There is no male space either. You can't go into the elusive, essentially, cigar room in the back and talk to the boys, talk to the men, and have locker room talk. That doesn't exist anymore. The only place that exists anymore is, unfortunately, anonymous places online. And that's just the brutal truth, fact, reality, right? It's not a good thing or a bad thing. There's both good and bad that comes from that, and there's many reasons why we're there, right? Like certain anonymous forum boards or different social media apps such as YouTube. Even the comment section is anonymous, and it's really the only place that we can speak our mind and essentially have locker room talk with the boys, because there really are no boys IRL in the real world. We're all atomized completely because there is no consistent community that we can go hang out with together. Going to church is still isolating. Working out is still isolating. You're just throwing weights around with your headphones in when you're working out. It's not like you're actually talking to anyone, or you're walking on a trail or something, playing music. And going to church, I'll probably make another video on that, but, it just depends on the church, of course, but, some of them are not very welcoming, and the unfortunate reality of it is that it's not actually the best place to, kind of, like, talk to strangers, essentially. People don't really want to be bothered, a lot of them, when they're going, and yeah. Although they do have a lot of good activities, so I think it is a good option. But moving on from that, because I'll probably make another video about that. But yeah, the gym is isolating. Church can be very isolating. Going out, getting food, going to the bar. I mean, let's be real here. Like, are you actually like talking to the bartender or the waiter, waitress, are you actually talking to them and having like a deep conversation, or like having a good laugh that is like a memorable thing, and you come back on a consistent basis and see them and become part of the, regular bar crew? Like, is that actually you? Probably not. And the question is like, do you want to be that person anyway? Do you really want to be the regular annoying customer that comes in and is always talking about their problems to the bartender and giving a suboptimal tip because you're broke or something? Like, do you really want to be that guy? I don't really want to personally. Typically I go in and, you know, maybe I can get something out of the bartender or waitress or something here and there, like say a random comment or something. But it's not like, they're sitting down with me for 45 minutes or so and fleshing out some life story, sharing experiences, and having a, really good time together. It's more like, here's your beer, here's your burger, have a nice day, weirdo. A weirdo loner person that comes in here very sparsely. Who are you again? That's more so what it is. So even the options that we do have are very limiting, and the attempts that we make, you can definitely like in real time get decent responses from people, but the issue is that you never really see them again. So there's no like community aspect for that, right? And where does that lead us? That leads us to being completely isolated and completely alone on weekends. And it's just absolutely brutal. And the main issue, one of the bigger issues with it, is that on weekends, or I guess I should say on weekdays, the internet is more active, it seems. Like just every social media platform is more active. It seems like a lot of people actually do have, friends and family and stuff like that they hang out with and see and have a good time with. So since that's the case, people like us that don't, it's just more brutal because it's just more lonely, more isolating than a typical weekday. So like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you have less people to engage with online, no one to really talk to IRL. So it's just like extra brutal. Whereas during the weekdays, typically there's like a decent amount of people you can engage with, at least online. And so that's a pretty good cope, things like that. And so that's kind of why weekends are so brutal, because there's just less people to engage with online, unfortunately. And obviously that's like a good thing, because that means that they're like touching grass and all that. And like, obviously that should be something that we want to do as well. But the issue with it is, like I said earlier, the community aspect isn't really there. So if we continue to touch grass, we're not really going to be growing fruits from that labor. It's just going to be us planting seeds that never really grow into a tree or bear any fruit. And back in the day, weekends used to be honestly pretty great, right? School was out. Maybe you don't work. Maybe you had some homework you had to do. You could play video games, right? Maybe you did have work. Maybe you worked weekends. But the thing about it was, like, back in the day, jobs weren't like being overtaken by AI as much as they are now. And maybe I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but when I had like more dead end jobs that were like customer facing, right? Like, a cashier at McDonald's or something like that. It was just easier. Those jobs are actually fun. You don't really have any responsibility. The thinking capacity that it takes is very low. And you can kind of honestly just shoot the shit with customers and employees and goof off and, throw pickles at people and stuff like that for fun. And, those jobs can actually be a lot of fun sometimes, even though they're garbage pay and probably not the best working conditions. They can actually be fun. Whereas more higher echelon jobs, they take a lot more stringent thinking, and there's a lot more responsibility, which is more. It's just more encompassing, just mentally to deal with that, and you can't really goof off the same way. You can't really throw pickles over a Zoom call, Um, that'd be fun though. But so, that was fun back in the day for weekends. But on top of that, we used to do like IRL hangouts even with friends and like play split screen together or like LAN parties and like play video games together IRL split screen, on like a PS2 or PS3 or like a old Xbox, and nowadays video games are completely online. Like a lot of these platforms don't even, or a lot of these games don't even support local split screen, which is absolutely mind blowing. Like that in and of itself is kind of telling that it's not even something that they're like coding in the game. Like there's just no demand for it, right? And that's pretty brutal. No one's hanging out IRL to play video games anymore, and it's just a brutal reality of it. Instead, we're all kind of just sitting at home alone, playing together online, which still can be fun, but it's definitely not the same when you have the person IRL in front of you. And then on top of that, the whole PC gaming thing kind of taking over, just, I would say it's a different kind of culture. And that I would say the PC gaming culture is like one step even more atomized, because it's kind of just a decent investment to get that going, whereas the console is like easier to kind of get into, right? You just buy the console, don't have to worry about everything. But with PCs, it's more expensive, and you have to, know your stuff and research it to understand what's going into it. So you're going to be more invested in using it for gaming, which means you're going to be less inclined to want to essentially meet up with someone and do split screen or something like that. You'll essentially be more inclined to want to stay on your setup that you bought for that exact thing, right? That you invested a lot of time, you invest a lot of money, instead of like the console. And I'm not trying to get into the PC versus console debate. I'm just saying that with more investment comes more like feeling of I have to use this setup. So again, it's just one extra step further down that kind of hole. But consoles are right there as well. There's not that much of a difference. But split screen gaming, with your boys or whatever was, that was pretty fun. I remember I used to play like Dragon Ball Z and, I don't know, I played a lot of video games, like COD and stuff like that. And then, Halo and, yeah, LAN parties were pretty crazy. And, other stuff that, back in the day we used to do, maybe, if you played, musical instruments, did some band practice. That's a pretty awesome kind of group activity to get together with your instrument and kind of jam out and go along with each other's cadences and try to put some cool stuff in and things like that. Like it's a good time, and it's a really nice thing to hang out and do stuff together. And I don't really hear about that much anymore now that I'm not in school. It's not really a thing for like adult people. I don't really hear about that. And that might be location specific. I know in some places there's probably a lot more of that going on. So that's cool. And then, also like back in the day, sports, right? Like maybe you had sports practice or a game or something. And that really brings people together. That brings your team together for practice, you know. And then maybe you have a pre or post hangout session of some sort with the team or with some of your friends on the team, or get some grub together. If it's a game, it's kind of the same idea. And then on top of that, the fans, or the local fans, or maybe you're going to a game to watch a game, that's definitely a good time too. That stuff is not really the same as well outside of school. To be honest, it's really not the same at all. Like, I don't care about some local town, right? And when I was in the school, I cared, but after graduating, like, you're not going there, you know what I mean? So that whole thing is dead completely. And then going to major sporting events, it's not really community, right? Because it's like people flying from around the country, even the world, getting together for this thing. And like once you leave the game, the sport ball game, like, you're never gonna see them again. So yeah, and you're not really like talking to people and making deep connections with them in the stands at these big games. You're just cheering on the team and leaving. So it's kind of brutal in that way. And then of course, some of the other things, back in the day, there was maybe some parties or like hanging out with friends and like doing some drugs or something like that. Which, unfortunately, I did get into that a little bit. I never did any hard drugs, just like marijuana, and I don't do it anymore. But it was something to do, man, and things were always interesting, at that age, and just goofing off and messing around, and going out places where we weren't supposed to be, and, going places where it was dark, and going to parties that we weren't supposed to be having, and things like that, like just hanging out, doing stuff. And nowadays it's just like me sitting alone, have no one to talk to, you know what I mean? And it's nice to reminisce on some of the good times, but I'm not really even trying to focus on that. I'm more so just trying to find an answer of how, I can build a friend group or community where I'm at. It's seemingly impossible with these odds, because the school thing is so pivotal to community as a young person, and that's just non-existent. That's literally where you met all of your friends. 100% of them you met at school. And then once you leave school, they're all gone. So it's absolutely brutal. And, on top of that, everything is online now. So people just aren't really going out to like any sort of events or places anymore in general. Especially with like the current events thing that happened, that just like turbocharged how eternally online, or terminally online, things have really become. Like, I noticed like meetups, even like they're basically all online. Like, you can't even do an IRL meetup anymore, it seems, or like a event or something. A lot of them are online. And you're, again, like, no one's in restaurants. It seems like they're all vacant. Everyone's just getting DoorDash, so you can't even like go in and sit down and talk to some random people, because no one's even there when you go in. I don't even know how these restaurants stay in business. Like, I don't even know why these restaurants like have a lobby at this point. Like, why aren't they all just to-go stations? Like, I feel like that, while it adds to the brutality of the situation that we're in, I feel like restaurants that would be just takeout only would like do way better. The cost is way lower than having to like have enough real estate to host an entire lobby that's pretty much empty 24/7 anyway, right? Um, but yeah, everything is online, and there's really no going back that I see. Um, I don't know, maybe some people have some ideas. That would be really cool. If people had some good ideas, maybe I could try something out. Um, the other thing is that no one really does things like together anymore. I feel like, everything is just so atomized nowadays. I go to gym alone, right? I go to store alone. I go to restaurant alone. I get food alone. I go to work, you know. I feel like maybe back in the day you would like hit up a friend to like go to the store together, or you would like hit up a friend to go to the park to like play basketball or something. Um, or like study together. Maybe even if went to school, you could like study with a friend, or maybe do some work, do some outside work with a friend, things like that. Like none of that's really going on anymore. Post the current events, like no one really wants to like do WeWork or something like that. So it's just not really an option, it's just not really feasible. Um, and that kind of just circles back to why weekends are just so absolutely brutal. It's because since everything is online and everything is over, when the weekend rolls around and the online space is just more dead than it is during the weekday, it just makes you feel terminally alone, terminal loner. And it's just absolutely brutal. And so that's kind of my synopsis on why weekends are so brutal.